You think you fell in love. You think it was your choice. The look in her eyes, the warmth in her voice, the way the world shrank until only she existed. You think you saw her soul. But what if everything you felt was a trick? Not from her, not even from you, but from something far older and colder than either of you. What if the real author of your love was nature itself, scripting the story only so it could repeat the same ending: creation, reproduction, and suffering? That was Schopenhauer's vision of love, not as poetry, not as destiny, but as deception. To him, love was the will of life disguising itself in beauty and desire, turning men and women into actors performing a role neither of them chose. Every glance, every heartbeat, every confession of devotion was part of a biological conspiracy to keep life going, no matter how much pain it caused. Schopenhauer didn't believe love was romantic. He believed it was metaphysical hypnosis, a trance that makes you forget what you are and why you exist. When a man looks at a woman and feels that surge of need, he thinks it's affection. Schopenhauer called it something darker: the blind, unconscious will to continue the species. You aren't admiring her mind or her soul. You're admiring a design carved by nature, a form calculated to capture your instincts and pull you into its plan. He called this the trick of the species. It's not that nature lies. It doesn't have to. It simply uses your emotions against you. It gives you the illusion of choice, so you'll play your part willingly. You think you want happiness. Nature only wants continuation. Every love story is the same secret mission repeated endlessly, a temporary illusion that leads to new life and then disappears into suffering. In Schopenhauer's philosophy, this force, the will to life, is not noble or divine. It's raw, mindless energy, a hunger that never stops feeding. Everything living, from a flower to a human, is possessed by this will. It makes you want, crave, and chase, not for joy but for survival. Love, in that sense, is just the will in disguise, whispering that your loneliness can end if you surrender. But it never really ends, does it? The thrill fades, the fantasy cracks, and the same mind that once adored now grows restless. The will has what it wanted. The spell breaks. What remains is reality, the ordinary, the imperfect, the exhausting. And then comes the next chase. To Schopenhauer, that cycle wasn't a failure. It was the system working perfectly. Nature needs the illusion to survive. Humans need the illusion to obey. Now, here's where his view turns truly psychological. Schopenhauer argued that we don't just fall in love with people. We fall in love with what they represent unconsciously. A man doesn't simply love a woman for her beauty. He's drawn to the potential of what she can create. Her physical traits, her temperament, her health, they all serve a hidden purpose to produce offspring that carry the strongest chance of survival. Love, therefore, isn't spiritual. It's biological mathematics dressed in poetry. The tragedy is that we believe it's more than that. We write songs about it. We die for it. We worship it as the highest form of meaning. Yet, according to Schopenhauer, it's only nature's algorithm keeping us moving, suffering, and reproducing. Look closer at the psychology of that idea. What does it mean if your strongest emotions are just tools of an impersonal force? It means that free will, at least in love, is an illusion. It means your mind was never your own when you felt desire. Every word, every heartbeat, every trembling confession of love was a message you didn't write. Schopenhauer saw men and women as victims of this machinery, both trapped by instinct, both seduced by the same lie. For him, the woman's allure wasn't evil, it was functional. Her beauty, grace, and mystery weren't choices. They were weapons evolution gave her to ensure life continues. The man's passion wasn't noble either. It was compulsion. Both sides act out a story written by forces neither understands. But there's something hauntingly human in how he describes it. Because even when we know love deceives us, we still chase it. We still long for it. We still fall for the same illusions again and again. That's what makes Schopenhauer's theory not just cynical, but deeply tragic. He wasn't mocking love. He was mourning it. He saw it as proof that intelligence can't free us from the will. You can know it's a trick, and you'll still play the part. This is where dark psychology begins to merge with philosophy. It's not just about manipulation by others, it's about manipulation by your own nature. The greatest deceiver isn't the person across from you. It's the instinct within you. You don't choose desire, it chooses you. You don't decide to fall in love. It happens the moment your biology finds a match. You think you've met the one, but in truth, the will to life has met its next opportunity. Imagine stepping outside of this illusion just for a moment. You look at lovers walking hand in hand, whispering promises, making plans. You know what Schopenhauer knew, that behind every word of love is a contract none of them can read. A contract signed not by them, but by the will. The signature says, you will suffer, you will cling, you will reproduce, and then you will fade. To most people, that truth sounds cruel. But to Schopenhauer, it was liberation. Because once you see the machinery, you can stop mistaking it for meaning. You can see love for what it is. A trick of the universe that keeps you alive but never fulfilled. And maybe that's the quiet rebellion he hinted at. Awareness. The ability to see through the mask, even if you can't remove it. The moment you understand love as deception, you begin to sense something beyond it. Something untouched by the will. This is where part I ends, at the edge of awakening. You've glimpsed how Schopenhauer turned the sacred idea of love into a psychological autopsy. You've seen how every heartbeat of romance can be traced to something mechanical, evolutionary, and cruelly indifferent. But that's only the beginning, because in the second part, the illusion deepens. We'll look at what happens after you awaken, when you no longer believe in love, yet you still feel it, when you understand the lie, yet you can't escape it. That is where the real darkness begins. You can't unsee it. Once the illusion cracks, the world around you changes. You start to notice the hidden architecture behind every romance. The patterns, the repetitions, the quiet desperation disguised as affection. You see people fall in love not because they understand each other, but because they fit some unseen design written by nature. You see how attraction blooms not from choice, but from necessity. You start to feel what Schopenhauer must have felt, that behind every smile is the machinery of life, turning its wheel without pity. He believed that the moment you awaken to this truth, you lose something irreversible. The magic of love dies, but in its place comes something far colder. Clarity. You begin to understand that your most tender feelings were never truly yours. You were an instrument, playing a song you didn't compose. Love was never about fulfillment. It was about continuation. You were never the author, only the messenger. To live with that awareness is heavy. You still feel desire, but now it feels borrowed. You still look at beauty, but now you see design. You still crave connection, but it feels scripted. Schopenhauer said the greatest punishment of understanding is that you no longer belong to the play. You become an observer of your own instincts, watching them act out their roles while you stand in the shadows. This is where dark psychology meets philosophy, the space where understanding becomes both power and pain. Because once you see how love manipulates the mind, you begin to see how easily the mind can be manipulated by anything that promises meaning. We are not logical creatures who occasionally feel. We are emotional creatures who occasionally think. And love, the deepest emotion of all, holds the strongest leash. When Schopenhauer said that love is nature's trick, he wasn't trying to destroy romance. He was revealing its cost. Every act of love, he said, is an act of self-deception that serves the species at the expense of the individual. Nature doesn't care if you're happy, it only cares that you reproduce. That's why the chemistry of attraction is so overwhelming, so irresistible. It has to be. Without that illusion, we'd never submit to the suffering that follows. Look at history. Look at the poetry, the wars, the madness that love has caused. People have killed for it, died for it, surrendered kingdoms for it. But in Schopenhauer's view, all of that passion is nature's way of making sure we never see what's really happening. Love blinds so the will can work. It makes you call pain devotion. It makes you confuse desire for destiny. Psychologically, that blindness is almost merciful. If we saw the truth too soon, we might refuse to live at all. That's the paradox. The illusion keeps us moving. We are built to chase what can never fulfill us, because the chase itself keeps the world alive. The will to life depends on our ignorance. Every confession of love is a small act of amnesia, forgetting the truth so that life can continue pretending it has meaning. But what happens when the illusion no longer works? When you've seen too much, felt too deeply, and realized that the pattern never changes. That's the question Schopenhauer asked in his later years. His answer was bleak but strangely liberating. He said that enlightenment begins where desire ends. Freedom begins when you stop serving the will. To him, that meant withdrawal, not from people, but from the delusion that people can complete you. The one who truly sees through love is not bitter, but quiet. He stops expecting others to fix what's broken inside. He stops believing that passion is proof of purpose. In that silence, he begins to see beauty differently, not as something to possess, but as something to understand. It's not an easy freedom. It's lonely, disenchanted, stripped of comfort. But it's real. Schopenhauer believed that once you understand the will, the only peace left is detachment. You can't destroy the will, but you can deny it control. You can feel love without surrendering to it, admire beauty without craving it, care without needing to possess. That's what he called denial of the will. Not indifference, but mastery. In psychological terms, that's the moment when the conscious mind stops being ruled by instinct. You become aware of your impulses, and awareness weakens their power. You see through the game, and the game loses its hold on you. But awareness doesn't erase emotion. That's the cruel part. You still feel the same pull, but you no longer believe its promise. You still long, but now you know longing is an echo of the will, a whisper that says, "Serve me." You watch yourself wanting, yet you no longer identify with the wanting. That's the strange life of awakening, to feel deeply, but not be consumed. Schopenhauer saw this state as the beginning of wisdom. To him, the wise man is not the one who avoids love, but the one who sees it clearly and still chooses compassion. Because once you understand that everyone around you is trapped in the same illusion, your judgment softens. You stop blaming people for their desires. You see them not as fools, but as prisoners of nature. You see yourself among them, no better, no worse, just slightly more awake. And maybe that's where the darkness of his philosophy turns into something strangely human. Schopenhauer believed that pity, the ability to see suffering in others, is the only moral feeling that matters. Once you see how love manipulates everyone, pity replaces pride. You stop competing, stop hating, stop chasing. You begin to care, Not because love promises happiness, but because you see how fragile we all are under the same spell. There's a kind of beauty in that realization, even if it's cold. It's the beauty of truth, the quiet relief of no longer needing the illusion. You stop romanticizing pain. You stop mistaking attachment for meaning. You stop searching for the one, because you realize the one you're looking for doesn't exist. There is only the will, endlessly recreating itself through us. Schopenhauer's final lesson was this: if love is the trick of nature, then awareness is the only rebellion. To know the truth and still act with kindness, that's strength. To love without illusion, to feel without ownership, that's freedom. Dark psychology tells us that power lies in understanding how the mind is shaped by hidden forces. Schopenhauer took that idea to its limit. He said the deepest manipulation isn't done by others, it's done by life itself. Every emotion, every dream, every ache of the heart is part of nature's control system. The only way to escape it is to see it. The only way to rise above it is to stop believing that desire equals destiny. Imagine that clarity for a moment. Imagine looking at someone you once loved, not with longing or bitterness, but with understanding. You see them not as the one who broke you or saved you, but as another being caught in the same design. You see their beauty as part of the world's machinery, necessary, powerful, but not eternal. And you realize that the same will that brought you to them will bring them to someone else. The cycle continues, but you no longer confuse it for meaning. That's what Schopenhauer called wisdom through suffering. You suffer until you understand, and once you understand, you suffer less. Not because the pain is gone, but because you finally know what it is. In the end, love isn't evil. It's just blind. It's the will of life doing what it must to keep itself alive. The tragedy is that consciousness came along and wanted more than survival. It wanted truth. And the moment we began to seek truth, love became both a gift and a curse. Schopenhauer's secret view was never really about women or men. It was about the invisible force that moves through both. The same force that builds, destroys, and starts again. The illusion of love is only one of its faces, but perhaps the most beautiful one. When you finally see that beauty for what it is, a mask, not a promise, you begin to wake up. You stop chasing ghosts. You stop mistaking biology for destiny. And for the first time, you see life not as a love story, but as what it truly is, a quiet struggle against the will that made you.